Okay, we're back on page 389. This is part 2 of lesson 5, chapter 5. So we are going to compare and order rational numbers, and the most important thing to remember is to compare, order, and rational numbers. First, you have to write them in the same form, meaning that you have to either write them a decimal and a decimal, a fraction and a fraction. Either way, they have to be written the exact same way so that you can compare them. So we're going to take a look at this example right here. And we are actually going to take this negative 0 and 51/100, and we're comparing it with negative 8/15. So we're going to actually take that 8/15 and we are going to turn that into a decimal, okay, which is what we have done the other day. We're just going to drop this down. We know that that can't go in there, but when we get to 80, we know that it can go in 5 times, and 5 times 15 is 75. We're going to subtract. I get 5. I'm going to bring down. I know that that goes in 3 times, which is 45. Subtract, bring down. You're going to see that it's going to eventually keep repeating itself. So basically what I'm saying is negative 8/15 is the exact same as negative 0 and 53/100 with the bar notation over the 3. So now I'm going to bring my negative 0 and 53/100 with my bar notation over it. You can see on the number line, I love it how they lined this up, by showing that negative 0 and 51/100 comes before, because this is where my numbers are going to start to get positive over to the right. So therefore, this 0 and 51/100 is bigger than 0 and 53/100 with the repeating decimal. Okay, so remember it's opposite when you're talking about negatives. The smaller number is actually the bigger number. Okay, I know we chatted about that before, but always something to remember. The smaller number in negatives is always the bigger number. Okay, so now what we want to do is we're going to take a variety of 3 numbers and we're going to write them in order from least to greatest. Okay, obviously the first thing that we have to do is we have to turn these into the same form. So we're going to leave our decimal alone. Okay, negative 0 or negative 2 and 46/100, but we're going to take these two right here and we need to turn them into decimals. So even though they have done that for us, which is right here and right here, okay, just remember that we can leave that whole number alone. We leave that whole number alone, and here we would just divide, on this one we would just divide 22 divided by 25, and we'd add our decimal points and we would do the math. Okay, so that's just a quick example since they've already kind of shown us this. We're going to do the practice problems down below, but in this situation, you can see on this number line, you have negative 2, then you have negative 2.25, negative 2.50, negative 2.75, and notice that my negatives are going this way, which means my positives would be this way. So by placing these on here, we can see that 2.1, which would be this one right here, is going to be my greatest number, and then so we're going from least to greatest, so we're actually going to be going the opposite way, but we know that that's the biggest number, and then we know the middle number is 2 and 46/100, which is the decimal that was there, and then we know that this converted to a decimal is negative 2.88, which is going to be our first one. Okay, so it's basically just turning them all into your fractions. You're taking your fractions and turning them into your decimal points. Okay, so let's take a look at this. We got to figure out which way to make this statement true. So if we're taking a look at negative 3 and 5/8 and negative 3.625, we want to see if it's greater than, less than, or equal to. We're going to leave that decimal alone, but we're going to come up over here and we're going to take negative 3 and 5/8. And remember, I'm just going to go ahead and leave the negative 3 point alone, and I'm going to just work on taking that 5/8 and I'm going to divide that problem out. I know that it can't go in there, but it can go in here 6 times, which is 48. I subtract what's this 2 I bring down, and I have 20. How many groups of 8 can I make? We can make 2, which is 16. I subtract, I get 4, and I bring down, which is 40, which can go in 5 times, which when I divide it out, I'm left here. So I'm going to take this decimal and place it up here. And now I can compare this decimal that I made, which is negative 3.625, and I'm comparing it with negative 3.625, which makes that equal, okay, which is amazing. Okay, so next one, we're going to take 3/7 and we're comparing it with 0.413. So I'm going to take my 3/7 and I'm going to do it right here, 3/7. We're going to divide that out. Decimal point 0, how many groups can I make out of 4 or out of 30? I can make 4, which is 28. 2, bring down. If I have 20, how many groups can I make? And I'm actually only going to go to 3 spots because I should be able to tell by then. And I know that that can go in twice, which is 14. 6, bring down the 0, and I'm going to be left with an 8. Okay, which is 56. But now I can stop because I can go ahead and compare these numbers because it's going to keep going on. And so I'm now comparing 0.428, and I'm comparing it with 0.413. Since they're positives, obviously the bigger number is going to be the bigger answer. So 3/7 is actually greater than 0 and 413 thousandths. Okay, so this next one is actually going to be pretty easy because I'm going to go ahead and do some undoing here so I get some room to write. The next one is actually going to be pretty easy when we look at these denominators. We're going to order these from greatest to least. So we're going to go ahead and leave that one alone. And then this one's actually really easy because it's negative 7 and then 17 hundredths. Remember our place value, tenths, hundredths. That is so easy. And then what I'm going to do here with my 13/20ths on this problem is I'm going to turn that into 100 because I know that I can multiply by 5. And 13 times 5 is 65, which means this one gets turned into negative 7 and 65 hundredths. Okay, so now knowing what I know about these, I'm going to order them from greatest to least, which means the first one is going to be my smaller one because they're all negative. So the smallest number is actually going to be the biggest. So negative 7, not decimal point, sorry, negative 7 and 17 hundredths because that's this one right here that we did, okay, and I've got to make sure I go back to my original problem. And then the next one after that is when I look at negative 7 and 7, oops, there we go, right here I'm looking at negative 7 and 78 hundredths, and I'm comparing it with negative 7 and 76 hundredths, or 65 hundredths. Then my next one is going to be, oops, there we go. My next one is going to be negative 7 and 13/20ths, and I'm running out of room, so, and then my last one is actually my decimal, which is negative 7 and 7/8. So a lot of work, but you just have to work through each problem separately. Okay, let's go down to this problem. We're going to go ahead and take a look at number 5 together. Okay, taking a look at number 5. Here's the good thing about number 5. When I look at this, I see 2 decimals. Oh, notice I'm going from least to greatest. Okay, right away I already know that 3.3 is less than 3.5. But then I have negative 3 and 3/4. Well, 3/4 is a benchmark fraction, which means we should know what that is. And if we don't, then we need to obviously, I'm going to show you, but it's 3 and 75 hundredths. Because 3/4 of a quarter, like 3/4 of a dollar, is 75 cents. Okay, so it's 0.75. And then we've seen 1/3 a whole bunch, and 1/3 we know is a repeating decimal is 0.33333 with the bar notation above it. If not, you take your numerator and you're going to divide it by your denominator, and you're going to see 910. 910. You're going to see it's just going to keep repeating. Okay, so notice that I have I'm writing them in order from least to greatest. Well, I've got two positives right here, okay? So we know those are going to be at the end. And my biggest number is 3 and 5/10. And then my next number is 3 and 3/10. Now we need to compare my two negative numbers. I have this one and this one. And you've got to think on a number line where they're going to fall. This one's going to fall here. This one's going to fall here. Which negative number is going to fall first? It is going to be negative 3 and 1/3, also known as this one right here, okay? So, because remember, this is the same. And then our first and our smallest one is going to be negative 3 and 3/4. Okay, so negative 3 and 3/4. Okay. I think that is good. I think I want you to go ahead and get started on your homework for the night. And your homework is actually going to be, oh goodness, what did I say? Oh, let me pull it up here. Let's see. Yes, your homework is numbers 1 through 17 odds. Okay, so your homework is numbers 1 through 17 odds.